Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh.
Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mile Manor DDC. Today we're going to do a review of a new 2020 Spyderco. Although while it's new, it's also not new. What I mean by that is it's based on an older Spyderco that had been done quite some time ago, and it's sort of a revamped, refashioned version of that. And that is the Spyderco Watu. That's right. There it is. Very, very interesting knife. In fact, I was intrigued when I initially saw some pictures of this and some videos of this particular knife out of SHOT Show. And a couple things going on here. So this is part of Spyderco's Ethnic series. And this particular knife is, like I said, based off a previous Spyderco model called the Chockwe. And I'll put a picture up of that. And the Chockwe, named after the Chockwe people of kind of central southern Africa, kind of that, I think Angola, Congo, Zambia, that area. So based on a traditional knife used in that area for, hundreds of years. Now, the Spyderco Ethnic series has a bunch of knives, I think, at this point that you could list off as part of that. Trying to remember, the Puko was one, the Nalaka, I think, was one fairly recently. They've had a bunch. Obviously, like I said, the Chockwe, which was a different version of this. Now, the Chockwe, from my understanding, they brought this sort of back from the drawing board and made it a little more smaller, put some new materials on it, made it a little lighter. And so it's a really fascinating, interesting knife. It's got a really unique look, and one that kind of appealed to me right out of the gate. And I'm not sure why. I mean, it's so angular and interesting looking, but I think maybe that is why. But I was really interested in getting it. So I went ahead and did that, and I'm glad I have it, and I'm glad I can do a review for you today on that. So we're going to do a classic mild-mannered review on this Spyderco Watu. So with that, let's go ahead. And I believe Watu means people. By the way, I think it means the people in Swahili, if I recall, that's what that is. So that's where the naming convention comes from there. So anyways, so without further ado, let's go ahead and do a spec check on this little guy, and then we'll get into the review. So we've got a blade length on the Watu of 3.26 inches with a cutting edge of 2.88 inches, a blade thickness of 0.10 inches, so very thin blade stock. And it gives us a handle length here of 4.17 inches and a handle thickness of 0.41 inches. And that gives us an overall tip to tail. I'm a little bit scared to touch the tip of this, actually. Oops, it's pointy, of 7.35 inches, and a weight on this Watu of 3 ounces, right on the money. So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting design, dimension, size, and it's really in the wheelhouse for me in terms of size and weight. So really was pleased to see that when I got it. How about a couple size comparisons? So Spyderco Watu, how about a Spyderco Delica? There you go. So you can see it's really not that much bigger than the Delica. How about a Benchmade Bug Out? So again, Bug Out's a little bit bigger than the Watu, just by a hair, I think. And then how about another Spyderco, the Kapara? So you can see the Kapara has it beat there size-wise. And then how about, well, it's our channel, right? Let's do the classic mild-mannered Swiss Army knife comparison. So there you go. So that's what we got on a size comparison for this this people's knife, if you will. So let's go ahead and get this review underway. And when we do a classic mild-mannered review, as you recall, or if you're new to the channel, we talk blade, we then talk action, we talk scales and hardware, and then ergos and carry. So let's begin with the blade. So yeah, there's a lot to like about this blade. It's in interesting, it's funny, they're calling this a clip point. And I guess that's probably the closest thing it sort of looks like, if in terms of just the standard blade designations we use, although, it's a very dramatic clip point. If you could call it that, it's got this very angular look, kind of top up here. You've got some flat here, and then it just curves ever so slightly right up to the tip there. So, in some ways, it's just unique. It's different. It's a very different blade shape and style. I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. Now, here's what I discovered about this blade right out of the gate. Wow, it is thin and slicey. I mean, like, super thin.
You just blew my mind.
Super thin and super slicey. I mean, the blade stock on this thing is pretty crazy, including the tip. I mean, you can see it's thinner and point. I mean, look at that tip, even compared to the Delica. I mean, it's pretty intense. So, if you're looking for a thin, razor sharp knife with some serious, piercing capacity, this is definitely one to look for. Now, this blade is in CPM 20CV. Let me see. There you go. Spyderco CPM 20CV. As you can see there, made from the Taichung plant out in Taiwan. A Sal Glesser design. So we've got this clip point. It's, a flat grind, as I think I mentioned, and this satin finish. So, in many ways, a pretty traditional Spyderco blade with a couple exceptions, right? I mean, it's super thin, super, super thin. Although, Spyderco knives are generally very slicey. It's not a huge gripe I have with Spyderco at all, but this one feels particularly so. It's like Mannix-esque and maybe a little more intense than even the Mannix 2, I think, as far as slicey ability. And then it's got this CPM 20 CV on it, which, not a lot of Spydercos have had that for just sort of a basic first run knife. So I could see some sprint runs and whatnot, but it's not in that standard S30V. So I thought that was pretty neat. I think really from a blade standpoint, obviously I have the spider hole here, right? Is it in the cutting path? Yeah, 100%. Is that a problem? How did they do with the grind? It's nice. It's symmetrical. It's looking good. No sharpening choil. Spyderco doesn't do those. A little jimping down here. Everything's chamfered pretty darn well. I'm not going to complain. Even the spider hole doesn't feel, sometimes out of Taichung you can get the sharper edges on the spider hole with the, without a chamfer and whatnot. But this is not bad. The other thing I like is it's not quite right up against the plunge line here, right? It's a little bit over there, so you don't have that awkward feeling on your thumb when you're deploying. And let's go ahead and talk about deployment. Let's get into action. So with action, it is a thumb flicking knife through a spider hole. It is running on phosphor bronze washers. I think you can see that, maybe. If I can get a flashlight to come on here. That's too bright. Bear with me here, folks. There, you can sort of see it in there. And then it also has a pivot bushing. And I'll put a picture of that up if I can. That's what's in the CQI version, or the constant quality improvement version of the Kapara, that makes it do this. Yeah, it makes it do that really drop shutty kind of action. So that's the same thing they've done here in the in the Watu. So that's what we've got here. Now, from an action standpoint, this isn't overly complex, right? It flicks open beautifully. It's got an awesome compression lock. Not much to complain about there from an action standpoint. It's came with 0 blade play. It's got everything you'd want from a Spyderco compression lock, with one exception. And this is my biggest gripe for this particular knife, and I was a little bummed about it, just to be honest. So watch this when I close it, and I'll keep my finger on the compression lock. Yeah, doesn't close all the way. Why is that? Well, because when you try to close it all the way, there it is. Yep, right there. Little bit of an exposed blade and that back of the finger choil. So now I understand that this is not the only Spyderco to do that. Some people say that the Kapara does that. I have not had that problem with the Kapara, but I don't think that's quite the same. If we want to hold these up and do a little comparison there, It's much more dramatic here on the Watu. So anyways, that's just, it bugs me. It bugs the heck out of me. I was so bummed when I got it and saw that, and I just went, oh, come on with this. I mean, so partly, what are the problems with that? Well, one, when you're trying to do the action, it won't close all the way if your finger remains there. So you kind of have to do this weird, get your finger out of the way game, which, the timing is just it's just not great on that. Hard to do. And the second thing is, and this is one of the things that kind of bothered me most was, now let me just say, I couldn't cut, I tried all week to cut myself on this.
Who does that?
And I couldn't. I honestly, I couldn't cut myself. So, on some level, is it unsafe? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I really did try. I mean, I was jamming my finger and my nail in there because I honestly wanted to see if I could cut myself, and I didn't. The one thing I don't like, though, is watch, if you push it from the back, yeah, you can push the darn thing open. I mean, so if this is in your pocket, and it's sitting in there, and for some reason your keys or your cell phone bump against that, and then it does this in your pocket. I mean, yeah, and I know this is, it's going to be up the seam of your pants or whatever, but still, that's just not cool. And all right, let's just do the rant.
Let's get ready to rumble!
I'm going to get into the rant here. This is what this pissed me off. And the reason this pissed me off is because I waited and waited and waited and waited and waited for this thing to become available. And as soon as it did, and by the way, I picked this up in Indiana Knives. That place is awesome. Eric over at Indiana Knives is awesome. He has great knives, great selection, very competitive prices. Priority shipping included. He doesn't, I'm not, this is not a paid advertisement or anything. I mean, I paid full price for this knife. I mean, there's nothing, he doesn't even know I would do that. I'm giving him a little shout out. I don't even know if he knows who I am, to be frank, but I just want to say I've bought a bunch of knives from him. He's great service, takes care of you. Just check out Indiana Knives. Very cool. Anyways. All right. Back to my rant. Now, what ticks me off about this is I waited and waited and waited, and it finally came out, and then I ordered it, and then I got to deal with this. And what makes me mad about this, and it's the same thing about the Akuchi, and in fact, I've got an Akuchi review coming up not too long, but what bugs me about the Akuchi is, or any of these knives, I mean, the Kapara, any of them, so I give Spyderco a ton of credit for their CQI, their constant quality improvement. I'm glad they do it. It's awesome. It's important. It shows that they're showing some dedication and wanting to continue to improve the product. But what pisses me off about it is you order this thing, it takes forever to get it, you finally get it, and then it's got a problem, and then you got to go, oh, okay. Well, so what do I do now? Do I sell this one and then wait around for the CQI version that is invariably coming on something like this? And then I'll have to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And then when the CQI version comes, I'll have to buy the CQI version if it's a knife I really like. And I have to tell you, I really do like this knife. And so that's something I'm going to have to think about. And then I have to go, oh, well, and I sell this. I have to make sure I tell people that this isn't the CQI version. This is the original version. I mean, it just irritates me, Spyderco. I mean, I know you were looking at this. How did you not see that? I just can't believe you didn't see that. It's annoying. And it's annoying that now I have to, and maybe your plan is not to do a CQI version. Maybe the plan is, oh, we missed it. Oh, well, it's, the ethnic series. It's sort of one and done or whatever. But come on. I mean, this has the potential to just be a rock star of a knife. And then it does that. I mean, I'm sorry. Now, listen, I like Spyderco knives. I really do. In fact, this is maybe my favorite knife. It's right. I mean, I have a few, but this one might be right up. So it's not that I'm an anti-Spyderco guy. I really do. And like I said, I applaud them for the CQI, but this is just BS. I'm sorry. Do this right the first time. You know how to do it. There's no excuse for this little thing to be there. And it sort of ruins the knife. And I don't know what to do now with this. Do I sell it? Do I keep it? Do I wait for the CQI? Do I care that much? I mean, I'm sorry. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm sorry for the rant here, but it feels, I know it's not very mild-mannered of me, but it just feels annoying. And I just want to put it out there. Light me up in the comments if you want. Fair enough. Or disagree or whatever. But it's just, All right. Sorry.
You finished?
Now. Let's clear the air. Let's make it. Let's get back to our happy, mild manner reviewing space here, and then we'll continue with the review. So apart from that thing, the action is fabulous, right? I mean, it does what a great compression lock with a pivot bushing will do. So, there's the action and rant included. So there you go. So let's talk handles and scales. Or scales and hardware rather. So scales, we've got a carbon fiber overlay here on top of G10. And I actually think this is it's not that slick laminated kind of looking G10 that they've used in the past. It's legit G10. It's got a weave sort of texture and feeling, which I actually like. I think this is one of their better carbon fiber overlays that they've done. I like it a lot. I think it looks really good. So, and it's got some aesthetics here with those holes, right? Which I'm sure cuts down on the weight as well. So yeah, I mean, I think it's it's certainly a good looking knife, and I think the carbon fiber was a cool choice on that. A micarta would have also been really interesting, but anyways, that's just my own personal opinion. So it does have a few screws here, right? Because of some standoffs and obviously the clip screw. Now, it does use a Spyderco wire clip. Everybody loves a good wire clip, at least I do. They can be, well, we'll talk when we talk ergos, but yeah, I mean, it's a great clip. No gripe there. You've got some standoffs with these stainless steel liners. Other than that, it's in some ways a sort of run-of-the-mill Spyderco. But yeah, so there you go. That's what we got for handles and scales. Now, and hardware. Let's talk ergos and carry. So ergos are great on this knife. They really are really good. I mean, so not only on this handle, you can kind of hold it down here if you want to do this. And, this part of the blade is that, I mentioned that angular part of the blade is interesting. But right here, you've got this part, and a little bit of finger choil. You want to choke up and do this kind of, and this knife, like I said, is so friggin' slicey that you can do a lot of... This is really designed, if you want to get in there and do this kind of thing, this is a great knife for that. And it's just, the ergos are great. I really, Spyderco does good ergos. It's not new for them. And this one, even being based off of, a design that's, been, in the part of Africa for many, many years, it's naturally, and it kind of shows why it, why it's lasted, if this is sort of what. Now, I think if I recall, like these holes are sort of callbacks to kind of the original traditional design found in Africa and used to put a piece of rope through there and hang it around. And I think this knife is, when in its traditional form, obviously is a fixed blade. It's not a modern folding lock or folding knife. So anyways, just kind of keep that in mind. It's a little bit of an aside there, but yeah, so the ergos are very, very good. And carry, likewise. It carries, so let's, if you look thickness-wise, you're about as thick in the pocket as a Spyderco Delica, almost exactly in some ways. So there you go. How about a Benchmade bug out for, the Benchmade's maybe a tad slimmer because you've got this opening here. Or the spider hole rather, which kind of bumps the blade style up. And that's just sort of the look of the blade. So there you go. But it carries wonderfully in the pocket. Obviously, when you've got a hank, you can see that the deep carry, it's deep carry. It disappears in the pocket, which is something I really love. So, yeah, there's, like I said, really a lot to like about this from any of those standpoints. So where do we go with that? Well, here's the bottom line. It's a cool knife. It's a really cool knife. In fact, it's a great knife in a lot of ways. In some ways, it's, it could have been in the running for my favorite Spyderco in a lot of ways. That said, you heard the rant. It's got a beautiful blade. The blade on this is fantastic. Apart from the Manix 2, might be my favorite Spyderco blade. I think if I have this a little bit longer, it may take that spot. Now, and again, ergo's great. I think the materials are fantastic. I love the 20 CV steel wire clip. It's got a lot going for it. It's this miss in the back that just bugs me to death. And I don't know. I'm torn on that because of that. I'm sorry. I know. A button lock compression lock. Could you imagine that, like they did on the Smock on this particular knife? Wow, Spyderco, come on, that would be unreal. But no. Instead, we've got this bizarre little thing. So, anyways, I don't know. So that's what we've got here. I think we have an amazing knife with a flaw. A glaring flaw that, maybe I'm making too much of it. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. You can let me know down in the comments, but it bugs me. And the whole sort of aura around it bugs me. So there you go. It's an interesting knife. I really like it. I don't know if it'll stay in the collection. I honestly don't. I'll have to wait and see. I am really loving the sliciness and the carry and the ergos. So we'll have to see what goes on. And I guess it may depend on whether or not Spyderco ends up doing a CQI version of this. So anyways, with that, sorry this review is maybe not as mild-mannered as some of my reviews. I mean, I was like, you can tell the passion in my voice. I was really torn on this knife. And a little bit disappointed because I was really I really substantially like a lot of parts of this knife. But anyways, there you go. That's the Spyderco Watu. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it useful. I hope it's something to give you some information if you're looking to get out there and buy this knife. It's about 180 bucks is what I've seen this run at. So that's the price. I think it's worth it. I think in a lot of levels, it's just, so that's, you're going to have to think about if that's an issue for you or not. So with that, stay safe out there, my friends. Be mild-mannered to one another, and all the best.
Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh. Booyah la mama eh.